Welcome to Monk's Temple. Before we begin anything at all, let us simply arrive together. Wherever you physically are right now, perhaps sitting in your car during a lunch break, lying in bed with the phone resting on your chest, settled into a favorite chair as evening light shifts outside your window, take one single conscious breath and notice that you have arrived. You are here. This moment exists. And in this moment, for just this one breath, nothing needs to be fixed. Nothing needs to be solved. You can simply be. We spend so much of our lives trying to fix things. Ourselves. Our circumstances. Other people. The past. The future. At the center of all this fixing lies a word repeated so often it has nearly lost its meaning: attachment. We hear that attachment is the problem. We hear that we must let go. But nobody ever really shows us how to unfurl the fingers of the heart. Nobody explains why letting go often feels harder than holding on tighter. The Buddha never told people to abandon their lives. This misunderstanding causes so much unnecessary struggle. When we imagine letting go, we picture loss. Empty hands. Saying goodbye to people we love, to possessions that comfort us, to identities built over decades. If letting go meant losing everything, the teaching would be a recipe for depression, not peace. The Buddha was not teaching depression. He was teaching freedom. But the Buddha was a practical psychologist, perhaps the most precise observer of the human mind who ever lived. He noticed something fundamental about suffering. He noticed that suffering was never in the things themselves. Suffering was always in the relationship the mind created with those things. Imagine standing on the shore of a vast ocean. Waves roll in endlessly, one after another, completely indifferent to your presence. You cannot stop the waves. You never could. No human ever has. But you can learn to swim. You can learn to dive beneath the waves that would otherwise knock you down. You can learn to float and let the swells carry you without drowning. The waves are not the problem. The problem is not knowing how to be in the water. The things of this world, relationships, possessions, successes, failures, identities, these are the waves. They will keep coming. That is their nature. The Buddha's question was not, how do I stop the waves? It was, how do I relate to the waves without drowning? This single shift changes everything. Suddenly, letting go is not about getting rid of your life. It is about changing your relationship to your life. Learning to swim. Let me tell you a story about swimming, though not in the ocean. A woman I knew, let us call her Margaret, spent 30 years collecting antique books. Her home was a small library, floor-to-ceiling shelves crammed with first editions, signed copies, obscure volumes nobody outside a small circle had heard of. She knew the spine of every book personally. She could tell you where she found each one, how much she paid, the story of the hunt. These books were not just possessions. They were her identity. When people visited, she gave tours. This one, she would say with pride, is a 1923 printing with a misprint on page 47. Only 6 known copies exist. Then came the flood. A pipe burst while she was at work. By the time she returned, water was everywhere. The books were ruined. Pages swelled and buckled. Leather bindings warped. Ink ran in sad brown streaks down title pages. Margaret stood in her study doorway and wept. Not for the money, insurance covered that. She wept for the loss of the things themselves. For weeks, she packed everything into garbage bags. Heavy, wet, smelly bags. She told me later that lifting those ruined books and placing them in the trash was the hardest thing she had ever done. Each bag felt like betrayal. But something shifted inside her. Somewhere around the 10th bag, she stopped crying. Somewhere around the 20th, she started remembering the books differently. Not as objects she owned, but as companions she had briefly known. She remembered passages that made her laugh alone in her study late at night. She remembered the smell of an old London bookstore where she found a rare volume. She realized the books had already given her everything they could. The joy was in the reading, the hunting, the discovering. The physical objects were just temporary containers for that joy. By the time the last bag went to the curb, Margaret felt lighter. Not because the books were gone. Because she finally understood something she had missed for 30 years. She had thought she loved the books. In reality, she had been gripping them. She had turned them into walls of a prison she called her identity. When the flood washed the walls away, she found herself standing in an open field she had forgotten existed. This is the beginning of letting go. Not loss. Just the discovery that you were always more than what you held. Consider what you might be gripping in your own life right now. Not what you love, but what you are holding so tightly that your knuckles have turned white. The Buddha's invitation is simple: you can open your hand. Just a little. Just to see what happens. If this resonates, if you are starting to see your own gripped hands more clearly, consider subscribing to Monk's Temple. We create long-form content like this to help you navigate the inner landscape with wisdom and self-compassion. It is a small way of telling yourself this journey matters. Let us go deeper now into this question of what we are actually holding. Margaret believed she was holding books. She discovered she was holding an identity. This is the first psychological insight we must sit with: we are almost never attached to the thing itself. We are attached to what the thing represents, the story we have woven around it, the way it makes us feel about ourselves. Think about your own life for a moment. The smartphone in your hand. Are you attached to the glass and metal and circuitry? Or are you attached to what it represents? Connection, validation, entertainment, a window into a world larger than your immediate surroundings. The device could be replaced with an identical model, and you would feel no loss. But lose the data, lose the photos, lose the messages, and you feel something unravel. Because the attachment was never to the object. The attachment was to the moments, the memories, the sense of self preserved in those ones and zeros. The Buddha saw this with perfect clarity 25 centuries ago. He did not have a smartphone to observe, but he had the human heart, which has not changed one bit. He saw that we take the raw materials of life, people, possessions, experiences, and we wrap them in layers of meaning. We add stories. We add expectations. We add the desperate wish for permanence. And then we suffer when the world refuses to conform to our stories. This is where the psychological insight meets the Buddhist framework. The mind is a story-making machine. It takes the raw data of experience and narrates it constantly. This is good. This is bad. I want this to continue. I want this to stop. This makes me who I am. This threatens who I am. The stories are not the problem. Stories are what minds do. The problem is that we believe the stories. We forget they are just stories. Let me tell you another story, this time about a man I will call James. James was a high school teacher for 34 years. He loved his job with a passion that few people ever feel about their work. He loved the smell of chalk dust, the rhythm of semesters, the faces of new students each September. He loved the moment when a struggling student would suddenly understand something, their eyes lighting up like a switch being flipped. He loved the camaraderie in the faculty lounge, the inside jokes, the shared purpose. Then came retirement. It was time. He was 67, and the school threw him a beautiful party. Students from decades past sent letters. Colleagues gave speeches. He walked out the doors on that last day carrying a box of personal belongings, and he cried on the drive home. He cried for weeks after. James fell into a depression that surprised everyone who knew him. He had planned for this. He had hobbies. He had a loving wife. He had grandchildren. Why was he so devastated? Because he had not just lost a job. He had lost the central story of his life. For 34 years, every morning had a purpose. Every day had a structure. His identity was woven into the fabric of that school. When he walked out the doors, the story ended, and he did not know who he was without it. He told me once, months into his retirement, "I walk into the grocery store now, and I'm just some old man buying cereal. For 34 years, I was Mr. Thompson, teacher. Now I'm nobody." But here is what James eventually discovered. He was not nobody. He was just nobody's teacher anymore. The identity he had wrapped so tightly around his profession had obscured everything else he was. He was a husband. He was a father. He was a man who loved birdwatching and classical music and long walks. He was a person with kindness and patience and a dry sense of humor. These things had always been there, but they had been in the background, overshadowed by the dominant story of teacher. The work of letting go for James was not about forgetting his 34 years in the classroom. That would be impossible and undesirable. The work was about loosening the grip of that single story so that other stories could come forward. It was about realizing that he was the one writing the stories, not the other way around. This is the psychological freedom the Buddha pointed toward. Not the absence of stories, but the ability to hold them lightly. To know they are stories. To watch them arise and pass away without being completely consumed by them. Consider your own dominant stories. I am a success. I am a failure. I am a good parent. I am a bad partner. I am too old. I am too young. I am not enough. I am too much. These are all stories. They have weight. They have consequences. But they are not you. They are thoughts you have thought so many times they have become grooves in the mind, like water carving a channel through rock. The letting go the Buddha taught is not about erasing the grooves. It is about noticing that the water does not have to flow only there. It can flow elsewhere. It can spread out. It can become a wide, slow river instead of a narrow, rushing channel. Let us stay with James for a moment longer, because his story reveals something essential about how attachment operates in everyday life. James eventually found his way out of depression, but not through any dramatic breakthrough. It happened gradually, through small moments of noticing. There was no single moment when the clouds parted and everything became clear. It was more like waking slowly from a dream, the details of ordinary life becoming sharper, more present, more real. One afternoon, his wife asked him to pick up their grandson from school. Just a simple task, nothing remarkable. He drove to the elementary school, parked, and waited with the other grandparents near the pickup area. The afternoon sun was warm on his arms through the car window. Children were laughing somewhere on the playground. When his grandson came running out, backpack bouncing, face lit up with the pure joy of being released into the afternoon, James felt something shift inside him. In that moment, he was not Mr. Thompson, retired teacher. He was not the man who had lost his purpose. He was simply Grandpa. And being Grandpa was enough. He started doing more of these small things. He volunteered at a local nature center leading bird walks on Saturday mornings. He discovered that people actually appreciated his knowledge, not because he was a teacher, but because he genuinely loved birds and could share that love without any curriculum or grading. He was still teaching, but the identity was different. Lighter. More fluid. He was not being a teacher. He was just sharing something he loved with whoever happened to show up. This is the psychological mechanism of letting go in action. It is not about dropping everything and becoming empty. It is about loosening the grip on one identity so that others can emerge. It is about realizing that you are not the narrow channel, you are the whole riverbed, capable of holding whatever water flows through. The Buddha used a different image to describe this. He spoke of a lute, a musical instrument common in his time. He said that if the strings are too tight, they will snap. If they are too loose, they will not play. The skilled musician finds the exact tension that allows music to happen. Not too tight. Not too loose. Just right. This is the middle way, he taught. Not gripping so tightly that life becomes suffering. Not abandoning everything so that life becomes meaningless. Just the right tension for the music of existence to play through you. Most of us live with our strings wound far too tight. We grip our relationships as if we could prevent change by holding on hard enough. We grip our careers as if the right amount of striving could guarantee security forever. We grip our self-images as if defending them against every criticism could keep them intact. And then we wonder why our hands hurt, why our hearts are exhausted, why the music has stopped playing. Let me tell you another story, this time about a woman named Patricia. Patricia was a pianist, a professional one. She had studied at prestigious conservatories, performed in small concert halls across the country, recorded albums that received respectful reviews in niche publications. The piano was not just what she did, it was who she was. When people asked what she did, she said, "I am a pianist." Not, "I play piano." I am a pianist. The identity was fused completely with the activity. Then she developed arthritis in her hands. It started slowly, just a little stiffness in the mornings that she barely noticed. She ignored it. She practiced through the pain. She told herself it would pass, that it was just aging, that she could push through. But it did not pass. It got worse. Within 2 years, she could barely play for 20 minutes without significant pain radiating through her fingers and wrists. The concert offers stopped coming. The teaching offers dried up. She could still teach music theory, but that was not who she was. She was a pianist. And now she could not be that anymore. Patricia went through a darkness much deeper than James experienced. She felt her life was over. She stopped returning calls from friends. She stopped going to concerts because it hurt too much to watch others play what she could no longer play herself. She sat at home and stared at walls and wondered what the point of continuing was. One day, a friend dragged her to a music therapy session at a children's hospital. Not to play, just to observe. The therapist was working with a little boy who had suffered brain trauma, using simple rhythms to help rebuild neural connections. The boy could barely move his right hand, but when a small drum was placed in front of him, something sparked in his eyes. He hit it. Again. Again. A rhythm emerged, primitive but real. And Patricia, watching from the corner of the room, felt tears running down her face. Not tears of grief this time. Tears of recognition. She realized in that moment that she had confused the instrument with the music. She had confused being a pianist with serving the thing that music actually does: connect, heal, express, bring life to whatever it touches. She could not be a concert pianist anymore. That door was closed. But she could still serve music. She started volunteering at that hospital regularly. She learned to facilitate sessions, to use rhythm and song to reach children who could not be reached any other way. She never played a full concert again. But she made more music in those hospital rooms than she had in all her years on stage. Patricia let go of being a pianist. She did not let go of music. She let go of the narrow identity. She opened to a wider one. The string was loosened, and a new music began to play through her. This is what the Buddha meant when he spoke of letting go of attachment. Not letting go of life. Letting go of the narrow, rigid, terrified grip on one particular version of life. Opening the hand so that life can flow through it in whatever form it takes. Let us sit with Patricia's story for a while, because it contains a teaching that can take a lifetime to fully absorb. She lost her ability to play the piano. But she discovered she had not lost music. Music was always bigger than her fingers, bigger than her repertoire, bigger than her identity as a pianist. Music was something she could participate in, not something she owned. This distinction between participating and owning is at the heart of the Buddha's teaching on attachment. We spend our lives trying to own things, experiences, relationships, achievements, even our own identities. We treat them as possessions to be acquired, defended, and preserved. But the nature of life is that nothing can be truly owned. Everything is on loan. Everything passes through our hands eventually. The only question is whether we will grip as it passes or receive it with open hands. Think about the last truly beautiful moment you experienced. Perhaps it was a sunset that stopped you in your tracks. Perhaps it was a conversation with someone you love where time seemed to disappear. Perhaps it was a piece of music that brought tears to your eyes. In that moment, were you thinking about owning it? Were you worried about losing it? Probably not. In the genuine experience of beauty, the grip relaxes naturally. You are simply present. The moment passes, as all moments must, but you do not suffer its passing because you were never trying to keep it. You were just there for it while it lasted. This is how the Buddha invites us to live every moment. Not just the beautiful ones, but all of them. To be fully present without demanding that presence last forever. To love without requiring the loved one to remain unchanged. To work without needing the work to define you. To live with an open hand. Let me tell you another story, this time about a man named David. David was a builder, a contractor who had spent 40 years constructing houses. He was proud of his work, and rightly so. He could look at a house and know that the frame was straight, the foundation was sound, the roof would not leak. His name was not on any of these houses, but his hands were in them. When David retired, he did not fall into the despair that James experienced. He had his health, his wife, his garden. He was fine. But something unexpected happened. He started driving around town looking at the houses he had built. He would park across the street and just look. He noticed when a new owner painted the front door a different color. He noticed when a tree he remembered being planted as a sapling had grown tall enough to shade the roof. He noticed when a family added a porch swing or changed the landscaping. One day, he drove to a house he had built 30 years earlier, and it was gone. Completely gone. A new, larger house stood in its place. David sat in his truck and felt something collapse inside him. It was not just a house. It was his work, his skill, his contribution to the world. And now it was erased. He went home and said nothing to his wife. He could not explain what he felt. For weeks, he carried this weight. He stopped driving around looking at houses. He stayed in his garden and pulled weeds with more force than necessary. Then one afternoon, his grandson came over. The boy was 10 and full of questions. He asked David what he used to do for work. David explained about building houses. The boy asked if he could build something, anything, with him. So David took him to the shed, pulled out some scrap wood and tools, and they built a birdhouse together. Nothing fancy. Just 4 walls, a roof, a hole big enough for sparrows. When they finished, the boy was thrilled. He painted it bright blue with yellow trim. He hung it in the oak tree in the backyard. That evening, David watched his grandson show his parents the birdhouse with such pride, such pure joy, and something shifted. He realized that the house that had been torn down was not the point. The point was not the objects he left behind. The point was the act of building itself. The point was the skill passed down, the time spent, the care applied. The house was temporary. The building was eternal. David started building again. Not houses. Small things. Furniture for the local school. Repairs for neighbors. A dollhouse for his granddaughter. Each time, he was not leaving a monument. He was simply participating in the act of creation, the same act he had participated in for 40 years. The form did not matter. The participation mattered. This is the psychological shift that letting go requires. We must stop measuring our lives by what we leave behind and start measuring them by how fully we participate while we are here. The house will be torn down. The books will be flooded. The career will end. The body will fail. But the participation, the moments of presence, the acts of love, the simple willingness to show up and build birdhouses with grandchildren, that cannot be taken away because it was never a possession. It was always just life flowing through life. David's story brings us to a profound truth that the Buddha articulated with perfect clarity over 2,000 years ago. The things we build, the relationships we nurture, the identities we construct over decades, these are not ours to keep. They are ours to participate in for a while. The house will eventually fall. The body will eventually fail. The career will eventually end. But the participation itself, the moment-by-moment engagement with life, that is always available, always present, always enough. This is where the psychological insight meets the Buddhist framework most directly. Modern psychology has a term for what David experienced. They call it meaning-making. Humans are meaning-making creatures by nature. We cannot help but assign significance to events, to objects, to relationships, to the smallest details of our daily existence. This is not a flaw in our design. It is simply what minds do. The problem arises when we confuse the meaning we have made with the thing itself. When we think the birdhouse is the point, not the building of it with a child who loves us. When we think the career is the point, not the hours of engaged effort that filled our days with purpose. The Buddha would say that David's suffering when the house was torn down came from a simple but profound error in perception. He had projected his entire sense of meaning onto the physical object. He had placed his legacy, his contribution, his reason for having spent 40 years working, into those wooden frames and shingled roofs. When the object disappeared, the meaning seemed to disappear with it. But the meaning was never actually in the object. The meaning was in the act of building itself. The meaning was in the skill applied, the care taken, the problems solved, the beauty created. That meaning was still alive in David's hands, in his memory, in the way he could still show his grandson how to hold a hammer level, how to measure twice and cut once, how to feel pride in something well made. Let me tell you another story, this time about a woman named Helen. Helen was a gardener. Not a professional landscaper, just someone who loved the earth with a deep and abiding passion. Her garden was her sanctuary, her therapy, her living art project. She spent hours every day in it, planting, weeding, watering, deadheading, just sitting and watching things grow in the warm sun. The garden was not just a hobby to Helen. It was where she went to feel connected to something larger than her small self. When Helen's husband died suddenly of a heart attack, the garden became something else entirely. It became the place where she could still feel close to him. They had planned it together in the early years of their marriage, planted the first trees together when their children were small, argued about where the roses should go and laughed about it later over glasses of wine on the patio. Every corner of that garden held a memory. Every flower was a conversation they had shared. Every stone in the path was placed by one of them. For 2 years after his death, Helen maintained the garden obsessively. It was her lifeline to him, her way of keeping him present. She would talk to him while she weeded. She would tell him about the birds that visited the feeder. She would sit on the bench they had bought together and just feel the weight of his absence and presence simultaneously. The garden was not just plants. It was a memorial. Then came the drought, the worst in decades. Water restrictions were put in place across the entire region. Helen could water only on certain days, for limited hours, with handheld hoses only. She did everything she could. She woke early on watering days to maximize every minute. She collected water from the shower in buckets. She watched the weather forecasts obsessively hoping for rain that never came. But the garden began to die anyway. First the annuals, then the perennials, then some of the older shrubs that had been there for 20 years. She watched it happen, day by day, week by week, and felt she was losing her husband all over again with each plant that withered. One evening, as the sun was setting and casting long shadows across the dying garden, Helen sat in the middle of it all and wept. She wept for her husband. She wept for the plants. She wept for herself and her loneliness. And then, in the middle of the weeping, something broke open inside her. She heard her husband's voice in her memory, not speaking actual words, but a kind of presence, a felt sense of him. And what she heard, what she understood in that moment, was this: the garden was never about the plants. It was about being alive together. Helen realized in that instant that she had done exactly what David had done with his houses. She had transferred the meaning onto the objects. She had made the plants into containers for her love, her grief, her memory. But the plants were not the love. The plants were just the place where the love had been expressed between them for so many years. The love itself was still there. It was in her heart. It was in the soil she had tended. It was in the memory of his hand on her back as they admired a new bloom together. The plants could die, and the love would not die with them. It could not die. It was not that kind of thing. She stopped watering obsessively after that evening. She let the drought take what it would take, and it took a lot. When the rains finally came the next spring, she planted again. But she planted differently this time. She planted with a lighter heart, knowing that these plants too would eventually die, and that was perfectly okay. The garden was not a monument to the past. It was a dance with the present. And the dance continues even when the dancers change. Helen's revelation in the dying garden brings us to the very heart of what the Buddha taught about impermanence. He did not teach impermanence as a tragedy. He taught it as a fact, a neutral fact, like gravity or the rotation of the earth. The tragedy is not that things change. The tragedy is that we exhaust ourselves trying to fight a battle we cannot win, trying to keep things exactly as they are in a universe where nothing ever stays the same. Think about the energy you expend every day trying to maintain stability. Trying to keep your body looking a certain way. Trying to keep your relationships in a comfortable groove. Trying to keep your career on an upward trajectory. Trying to keep your self-image intact against the 1,000 small assaults of daily life. It is exhausting. And the Buddha's invitation is simply this: what if you stopped fighting? What if you accepted that change is not a failure of your effort but the very nature of existence? This is not a passive resignation. It is not giving up. It is something far more active and far more alive. It is learning to move with change instead of against it. It is learning to surf the waves instead of being crushed by them. Let me tell you another story, this time about a man named Frank. Frank was a businessman, very successful, the kind of man who built things from nothing through sheer force of will. He started with a single food truck and over 30 years built a regional chain of restaurants. He was proud of what he had built, and rightfully so. He had created jobs, served good food, provided for his family. The restaurants were his identity, his legacy, his reason for getting up in the morning. Then the recession hit. Not the restaurant's fault. The whole economy shifted. People stopped eating out as much. The margins shrank. Frank did everything he could. He cut costs. He worked longer hours. He borrowed against his house to make payroll. He believed that if he just worked hard enough, sacrificed enough, he could save what he had built. But he could not. One by one, the restaurants closed. The last one closed on a gray Tuesday afternoon. Frank stood in the empty dining room, surrounded by tables and chairs that would be auctioned off the next day, and felt his entire life collapse. He had nothing left. That is what he believed. For months, Frank was lost. He did not know who he was without the restaurants. He had defined himself as a businessman, a builder, a success. Now he was none of those things. He was just a man in his 60s with no business and mounting debt. One day, his daughter asked him to help her with a small project. She wanted to start a little catering business from her home, just for friends and neighbors, nothing big. She needed advice. Frank agreed reluctantly, mostly to get out of the house. He sat at her kitchen table and watched her struggle with a business plan. After a while, he started making suggestions. Just small things. How to price the food. How to manage the schedule. How to talk to customers. Something happened in that kitchen. Frank realized that the restaurants were gone, but the knowledge was not gone. The experience was not gone. The instincts he had developed over 30 years were still there, still alive, still useful. The buildings were gone, but the builder was not gone. He started helping his daughter more. Then he started helping other people, young entrepreneurs who needed guidance. He never built another restaurant chain. That part of his life was over. But he found something unexpected. He found that he enjoyed this new role more than the old one. There was less pressure, less weight. He was not defending an empire anymore. He was just sharing what he knew with people who could use it. Frank let go of being the owner. He became a teacher instead. The string was loosened, and a different music began to play. This is the pattern we see in all these stories. Margaret with her books. James with his teaching. Patricia with her piano. Helen with her garden. David with his houses. Frank with his restaurants. In each case, the person had wrapped their identity tightly around something external. In each case, that something was taken away by circumstances beyond their control. And in each case, when the grief had passed, they discovered that what they really were had not been taken at all. The Buddha would say that this is not coincidence. This is the way life teaches us. Life keeps taking things away so that we can discover what cannot be taken. The body ages. Relationships end. Careers shift. Possessions break or get lost. Reputations rise and fall. All of this is the curriculum. And the lesson, repeated over and over, is that you are not any of these things. You are the one who notices them coming and going. You are the awareness in which all of this appears and disappears. This awareness, this capacity to witness, this is what the Buddha called the unconditioned. It does not change. It does not age. It does not get sick. It does not die. It is simply here, always, the same, watching everything else change. And when you recognize yourself as that, rather than as the changing things, the fear of loss begins to dissolve. Not because you stop caring. Because you finally understand what you truly are. Let us sit with this idea of the unconditioned for a while, because it is perhaps the most important concept in the Buddha's entire teaching, and also the most consistently misunderstood. The unconditioned is not something you achieve through effort. It is not something you earn through years of meditation or good deeds. It is not a reward for spiritual progress. The unconditioned is simply what is left when you stop adding things to your experience. It is the sky behind the clouds, always there whether the clouds are present or not. It has always been here. You have just been too busy watching the clouds to notice what was holding them. Think about your own experience in this very moment. Beneath all the thoughts moving through your mind, beneath all the emotions you may be feeling, beneath all the physical sensations in your body, there is simply awareness. Pure, effortless, present awareness. You do not have to create it. You do not have to maintain it. It is just here, like the space in a room that holds everything without being anything itself. This awareness has never been born and will never die. It has never been improved by your successes or damaged by your failures. It is simply what you are at the most fundamental level, beneath all the stories and identities and costumes you have worn throughout your life. The Buddha pointed to this truth again and again. He said that identifying with the changing things, the body that ages, the feelings that rise and fall, the thoughts that come and go, this is the root of all human suffering. It is like going to a movie and forgetting you are in a theater. When the villain appears, your heart races. When the hero is in danger, you grip the armrest. When the sad scene arrives, you cry real tears. All of this experience is genuine. But if you simply turn around and look at the projector, you remember. You remember that the light is just light passing through film. You remember that you are just sitting in a chair, safe and dry, watching a story made of light and shadow. The stories we tell ourselves about our lives are exactly like that movie. They are compelling and meaningful. They are full of joy and tragedy and love and loss. But they are not what we are. They are what we are experiencing. The difference is subtle but absolutely critical. What you are experiencing changes constantly. What you are does not change at all. Let me tell you another story, this time about a woman named Grace. Grace was a nurse for 42 years, from the age of 22 until she was 64. She worked in emergency rooms, in intensive care units, in hospice. She had seen more suffering and more dying than most human beings could even imagine. And she was good at her job, not just technically competent but deeply humanly good. Patients' families would remember her for years afterward, send her cards at Christmas, come back to thank her. She had the gift of presence, the rare ability to be fully with someone in their hardest moments without needing to fix anything. She just showed up and stayed. When Grace finally retired, everyone who knew her assumed she would be relieved. 42 years of that kind of emotional weight is heavy. But Grace surprised everyone. She missed it terribly. Not the suffering. She did not miss that. She missed being useful. She missed being the person people turned to when they were most afraid. She missed having a clear role, a defined place, a reason to get up in the morning. For a full year after retirement, Grace drifted. She volunteered at a food bank. She joined a book club. She traveled with her sister. All of it felt hollow. She kept thinking the same thought over and over, I was a nurse for 42 years. That was who I was. Now I am nothing. Just an old woman with nothing to do and no one who needs me. One ordinary evening, Grace was at the grocery store buying a few things. In the checkout line, the woman directly in front of her collapsed. Just fell straight down, right there between the candy bars and the magazines. People panicked. Someone screamed. The store manager came running over looking completely helpless. And Grace, without a single moment of thought, knelt down beside the woman on the dirty floor. She checked for a pulse. She tilted the head back to clear the airway. She spoke in a calm, steady voice, telling the woman she was there, help was coming, everything was going to be okay. She stayed right there until the ambulance arrived. Afterward, the store manager thanked her. He asked if she was a doctor. She said, "No, I was a nurse." Past tense. 2 words. I was. But as she walked to her car in the parking lot, she stopped and realized something profound. She had not been a nurse in that moment. Not really. The license was expired. The uniform was absent. She had just been nursing. The identity was not required at all. The action was enough. The caring was enough. The simple human presence was enough. Grace started volunteering at a free clinic after that evening. Not as a nurse, her body could not handle full shifts anymore. But she sat with people in the waiting room. She listened to their stories. She held fussing children while parents filled out forms. She was not being a nurse. She was just being human with other humans who were scared and tired and hoping for help. And it was enough. It was more than enough. This is the letting go that the Buddha taught. Not the loss of identity, but the discovery that identity was never actually required. The caring was always what mattered. The loving was always what mattered. The simple presence with whatever is here. That was always what mattered. The uniforms, the titles, the roles, those were just costumes. Underneath every costume, you were always just you. And you were always, always enough. Grace's story brings us to a recognition that can change everything about how we live. She spent 42 years believing she was a nurse. She discovered in a grocery store aisle that she was simply someone who nurses. The difference between being a noun and being a verb is the difference between prison and freedom. A noun is fixed, solid, definable. A noun can be evaluated, judged, found wanting. A noun can be lost. A verb is alive, moving, responsive. A verb cannot be lost because it was never a thing to begin with. It was always just action, just flow, just life expressing itself. The Buddha understood this distinction with perfect clarity. He saw that we turn everything into nouns. We take the flowing, changing, living quality of experience and we freeze it into concepts. We say, "I am angry," as if anger were a thing we possess rather than a passing energy. We say, "I am depressed," as if depression were an identity rather than a temporary weather pattern in the mind. We say, "I am a failure," as if failure could be the final truth about a being who is still breathing, still changing, still capable of anything. This habit of turning verbs into nouns is the engine of attachment. We grip the noun because we think it is real. We defend the noun because we think it is us. And then we suffer when life, which is always verb, refuses to stay inside our noun-shaped boxes. Let me tell you another story, this time about a man named Robert. Robert was an athlete, a serious one. He had run marathons his entire adult life. His body was his instrument, his source of pride, his identity. He was the fit one, the healthy one, the one who could outrun everyone. When people described Robert, they always mentioned his running. It was the first thing they said. Then, at 62, Robert's body began to fail. Not dramatically, not all at once. Just small betrayals at first. A knee that hurt after runs. A hip that stiffened overnight. He ignored it, ran through it, told himself it was nothing. But it was not nothing. Within 3 years, he could barely walk without pain. The marathons were impossible. The daily runs were impossible. Soon, even long walks were impossible. Robert fell into a depression that shocked his family. They did not understand. It was just running, they said. Find another hobby. But it was not just running to Robert. It was who he was. Without it, he did not know himself. He sat in his chair and watched television and felt his life draining away. One day, his young granddaughter came to visit. She was 6, full of energy, curious about everything. She found an old trophy of Robert's in the basement, a first-place medal from a marathon 20 years ago. She asked him about it. He told her the story, and as he talked, something stirred. He remembered the feeling of crossing the finish line. Not the trophy, not the medal, not the recognition. Just the feeling. The exhaustion and elation mixed together. The sense of having done something hard and beautiful. His granddaughter asked if he would teach her to run. Not for races, just for fun. Robert almost said no. His body hurt. He could not run. But she was so eager, so alive, that he agreed to try. He walked while she ran ahead and then ran back to him. He showed her how to breathe, how to pace herself, how to listen to her body. He was not running. But he was teaching running. He was sharing running. He was still participating in the thing he loved, just in a different form. Over time, Robert became something he never expected. He became a coach. Not officially, not for money. Just a man who loved running and loved sharing that love with others. He worked with children at first, then with beginners, then with older people who thought they were too old to start. He never ran again himself. But he ran through everyone he taught. Robert let go of being a runner. He became someone who runs, even if the running happened through others. The noun dissolved. The verb continued. This is the freedom the Buddha pointed toward. Not the end of activity, but the end of identification with activity. Not the end of love, but the end of clinging to the beloved form. Not the end of doing, but the end of believing that what you do is what you are. Think about your own life in this way. What nouns have you become attached to? I am a parent. I am a professional. I am successful. I am intelligent. I am attractive. I am kind. Even the positive ones can become prisons. Because what happens when your children grow up and do not need you in the same way? What happens when your career ends? What happens when success falters or intelligence fades or attractiveness changes? If you are those nouns, you will suffer. But if you are the verb behind them, the parenting, the working, the succeeding, the learning, the loving, then the form can change and the essence remains. Robert's transformation from runner to someone who runs through others brings us to the end of our long journey together. We have walked through many stories: Margaret and her flooded books, James and his retirement, Patricia and her piano, Helen and her dying garden, David and his demolished houses, Frank and his lost restaurants, Grace and her grocery store moment, Robert and his running. Each story is different. Each person is unique. But the pattern is always the same. Something is lost. Something is grieved. And something is discovered that was always there, hidden beneath the identity. The Buddha spent 45 years pointing to this pattern. He did not teach a philosophy to be believed. He taught a practice to be lived. The practice is simple, though not easy. It is to pay attention. To notice where you are gripping. To see what you have mistaken for yourself. To relax, just a little, the tight fist of the heart. Let us practice together for a moment, here at the end of our time. Bring your attention to your breathing. Just notice it. Do not change it. Do not improve it. Just feel the air moving in and out of your body. Notice how the breath breathes itself. You do not have to do anything. It is just happening. Now bring your attention to your thoughts. Notice them arising and passing away, like clouds in the sky. Do not try to stop them. Do not try to hold on to them. Just watch them come and go. Notice how you are not your thoughts. You are the one watching them. Now bring your attention to your sense of self. That feeling of me that runs through your experience. Notice how it changes. Sometimes you feel like a success, sometimes like a failure. Sometimes you feel confident, sometimes insecure. That me is different in each moment. But the awareness that notices these different me's is the same. It has not changed. It has never changed. This awareness, this presence, this capacity to witness, this is what you are. Not the stories. Not the identities. Not the nouns. Just this. Just here. Just aware. The letting go that the Buddha taught is not a technique for getting rid of things. It is a homecoming. It is returning to what you always were. It is realizing that you were never the wave. You were always the ocean. The wave rises and falls. It crashes on the shore and disappears. But the ocean remains. It was never harmed by the wave's disappearance because it was never just that wave. You have spent your whole life thinking you were waves. This wave called my career. This wave called my relationship. This wave called my body. This wave called my reputation. And you have suffered every time a wave crashed. But the crashing was never the problem. The problem was forgetting you were the ocean. So here is the invitation, as we end. Not to stop caring. Not to abandon your life. Not to become cold or distant or detached in the way people imagine. The invitation is to care more deeply, love more fully, live more completely, but with an open hand. To hold what you love knowing you will have to let it go. To be fully present with what is here knowing it will not stay. To love the wave knowing you are the ocean. This is not pessimism. This is not depression. This is freedom. The freedom to love without clinging. The freedom to live without terror of loss. The freedom to be fully here, right now, because nowhere else exists and no other time is coming. Margaret with her books eventually started a little reading group for children in her neighborhood. She did not need the antique volumes anymore. She just needed to share stories. James the teacher started volunteering at the nature center and discovered he loved teaching adults even more than teenagers. Patricia the pianist found her music again in hospital rooms. Helen's garden recovered and she planted it differently, with less attachment and more joy. David kept building birdhouses and furniture and small things that would not last, and he was fine with that. Frank became a mentor to young entrepreneurs and found more satisfaction than he ever had running his own business. Grace sits with the frightened in waiting rooms. Robert coaches runners who will never know he was once a champion. They all lost something. They all grieved. And they all discovered that what they really were had not been lost at all. You will lose things too. You already have. You will lose more. That is the nature of being alive in a changing world. But you do not have to lose yourself in the losing. You do not have to become the grief. You can be the one who notices the grief. You can be the space in which grief and joy and loss and love all appear and disappear. This is the peace that the Buddha promised. Not the peace of getting everything you want. Not the peace of a life without problems. Just the peace of knowing who you really are. The peace of resting in the ocean while the waves do what waves do. Thank you for walking this path with me. Thank you for your attention, your presence, your willingness to explore these deep waters. May you hold what you love with an open hand. May you release what must go with grace. May you know yourself as the ocean, vast and deep and completely untouched by the passing waves. Until we meet again at Monk's Temple, go well. Go peacefully. Go with love.